My name is George John. I'm the founder and chairman of Rocket Fuel. I'll talk a little bit about how there we go, that's different. I'll talk a bit about how I got to Rocket Fuel. I was studying artificial intelligence in school and working on autonomous robots, and became disillusioned when I realized that whenever we would have conferences too, the people who work on autonomous robots. But whenever we got together at those conferences, we would go out to dinner and talk about, how we were going to impact the world and who needed an autonomous robot anyway. This is in the early 1990s. And someone would say, well, someday they're going to send a robot to the moon, and it's going to, to Mars. And it's too far away to drive it, so it's going to need to be autonomous. And you can imagine it's easy to go back to your hotel and just think about all your friends who are doing things that don't rely on getting a robot intact to the surface of Mars. So I started to look for other more practical applications, and got to marketing after being in a career quandary on marketing versus quantitative finance. And right as I was trying to decide what to do, Scott Adams came out with a Dilbert strip. You may have seen the one where Dilbert is sent down to talk to marketing. There's a sign over the front, welcome to marketing, 2 drink minimum. And they're all wearing togas and sipping cocktails. So the rest was history. So what we built at Rocket Fuel was a way to try to maximally leverage the functionality of smart machines to help marketers achieve more success. Let's see. Okay, the next button. Does anybody know what to do aside from pushing the next button? Back button, perhaps? Is anyone in the back that has control over things? That little hand, hey, look at that. All right, there we go. I may have control now. So we think this is the future of marketing, leveraging smart machines to try to achieve success. So we talk a lot about moments at Rocket Fuel, and it's not just kind of marketing fluff. We mean, we really think about not a mass audience, not a segment, not a person, but a single moment of that person's time. And is that the time you want to tell them about your ice cream or your luxury car? And it just seems like in our society now, this is just the way all of us think. Earlier speaker asked, who's planning to check your email, during the next 10 minutes. All the hands went up, right? So in that kind of world, how do you adapt? So we talk about the chief moment officer now, is you've got to understand how to exploit these moments of time. So we like to think about in the moment world, it's different. Even smart marketers, right? You think about, well, I've got, Gary. Gary's 45 and likes power tools and works on his house and his car. And then there's Susan, who's got 2 kids. And so it's a common thing, right, in marketing to have a few personas. But in our view, you don't just have personas. You've got people, and even those people, are in different mindsets. There's Sally, or whoever she is, with some consternation, looking at her project plan falling behind, and then ignoring her friends at a party, looking at something sort of incredibly amazing on her phone. So in these different contexts, different messages make sense. So we feel marketers need to stop marketing to segments and profiles and really start leveraging real-time information and trying to, in real time, have systems that can decide what, if anything, is the right message to deliver and how much it's worth to deliver. Whether that's a digital ad being delivered anywhere kind of in the digital universe. We work on top of ad exchanges and have direct relationships that give us video, programmatic TV, mobile, traditional web. Also, we work with a lot of companies to power a data management platform that can drive their own websites, their call centers, email, and so forth. So it just makes sense to us that you'd have one intelligence that knows these things and can adapt. And we feel there's no reason anymore to use months-old data from old campaigns to decide what to do. You can really be evaluating in real time what's working. This website, that device, this city, this time of day, this past interest is being shown. So one thing we see a lot is marketers come to us and say, okay, we're going to run a campaign. It's $55,000 on mobile, $1 million on video, $500,000 on display. And where are these numbers coming from, right? I think everybody's got some math somewhere. But where does that math come from? Is that the last quarter's campaign? Are we sure this campaign has the same characteristics as last quarter? Why not just let a system be observing, right? What's working, what's not? Perhaps after you serve 3 mobile ads, then the video ad is the best thing to do. So how can we put these things together instead of keeping them apart? So these are all the themes that we talk about in marketing in the moment. And so one moment just means really trying to analyze everything we can possibly know at the time we're deciding, again, is this the right time to sell the cheese to a customer? If it's on the web, it's what page they're on, where is it on the page, what were they just doing before? You have the traditional marketing metrics like demographics. You have behavioral information about what they've been looking at. And it just take all of this, take the device they're on. Is it the latest Android? Is it 2 versions old? Is it the iPad, the iPhone? We even see differences in behavior between the iPhone and the iPod Touch, which they're a little bit more different now, I suppose, but for a long time, they were the same device, essentially. Just one of them had an extra antenna for a phone in it, but we saw different behaviors because there's different usage modalities. One is more of a relaxing on the couch and having fun. The other is maybe trying to find the nearest subway station just to move on. So in that world, then, if you can move away from the old approach of segments where, again, you're just thinking, well, I'll put a third of my budget on retargeting, I'll put a third on some demographic that I think is the right demographic for me, and I put a third on context, right? If I'm selling cheese, I stick it on the recipe website. I mean, those aren't bad ideas, of course, but it just seems strange to us to kind of guess at it, versus letting the machines run it and discover just the precise response statistics. Like, what is the probability of buying more cheese if I serve the ad right now, given all that I know? So this idea of thinking about customers differently, even the same customer in different contexts, it's hard if you come to it just thinking about your personas, but it gets easier and easier the more you think of what you're really buying when you buy marketing. It's not just the whole world's distribution of Vogue magazine. It's not just the whole world's NBC, pardon me, I don't know the TV channels, BBC, Tuesday evenings. When you can really buy with this precision, even coming with programmatic TV, it becomes more and more natural to be thinking about what you're really buying is just one rectangle that one person will see perhaps over some duration of time, if it's video or other types of display units. So given that, it becomes really easy to start thinking about these as different people, even though they're the same. So with this, then, what we'll see is that for the same person at different times in the day, we're going to be scoring differently different messages to deliver, whether that's across the web or even if you're a bank and you want to be smart about what you say as people come to your website. You might even be plugging into, let's say, real-time data sources on, do you want to promote different things if financial news is happy that day? Markets are up, markets are down. There's probably different mindsets your customers will have when they come. It'll be predicting, for every different message we could show, if it's out on the web, every message is getting different scores at different times. So one really cool thing that happens then is as these campaigns are running, I've said it's magic, but I didn't really say, how is the computer getting smart, right? And so it's getting smart by defining goals for these campaigns at the level of the user and a specific action, right? So if you're trying to get someone to download the Pickles coupon, or if you're trying to get them to the BMW website and submit their information as a lead, whatever it is, even it can be offline sales with certain partnerships, right? Whatever it is, if you can give that signal back and say, well, here's a description of that moment that we bought or that we chose to use for this message, and this one worked, right? Here's, in that case, they filled out the lead form. Here's 1,000 other cases where they didn't. This begins to build up and up over time, right? As you get hundreds and hundreds of positive responses, it builds what a machine learning person would call a corpus, a training set. And then at Rocket Fuel, we don't have human data scientists looking at that. It's just a sort of an AI model factory that's looking at that all the time, looking for new patterns. And so this one chart is showing on the blue for this happened to be an e-commerce website. In the blue is their cost per action of getting someone to actually subscribe to a service. So that's getting lower over time, so that was fantastic, going from 80 to 90 down to 5, which was about a fourth of their goal, so that was fantastic for them. And over time, the yellow chart is showing the number of features or factors in the model. So in the beginning, the model didn't know much. It actually had 0 features. It's got clipped on the left there. But over time, just more and more things started seeming relevant. So You'll see the thing identify websites that it likes, identify behaviors that it likes. By likes, I just mean there were statistics suggesting that those were things that seemed to make people respond, or contexts in which people would respond. And then as those features get added to the model, then the next moment it's trying to buy ad space in an ad example, it's actually buying more of that kind of stuff. Now, sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong. So if it buys more stuff and it doesn't work as well, don't shed a tear. As the About.com CEO was speaking about earlier, right? There's success and then there's data, right? If something doesn't work, it's a data point. Just move on, right? So the system kind of benefits quite a lot by not ever being sort of, maniacally sticking on any view. It's just very unsympathetically or unemotionally continues on searching and searching for different factors that work. This is one example of some factors inside the model. We looked at some luxury car campaigns and looked at one type of feature in the model is the website that the ads are being shown on. It's fairly straightforward, right? The thing that's not straightforward was that its favorite website for a luxury car was start.toshiba.com, which has nothing to do with cars, of course, but if you buy a Toshiba laptop and start browsing the web, you begin at start.toshiba.com, and if you don't have the energy to change your default start page, you begin there every time you start browsing. It also liked, on the left-hand side, macrumors.com, appleinsider.com, and that kind of makes sense, right? If you're the kind of person who just can't wait to understand how you can pay more money to Apple for their expensive gadgetry, you're probably a good prospect for a luxury car. Under Apple Insider, there on the left is ndtv.com. Hindustan Times is in the middle. NDTV is a New Delhi TV. These campaigns are running in the US, so the system by itself discovered a cluster of Indian expatriates living in the US, checking the news back home, but good prospects for luxury cars. I have to tell the story. That one came to life. I was driving out of our parking lot at Rocket Fuel shortly after building this chart. I drive a slightly beat-up Toyota Prius, and up next to me in his brand new Mercedes C-Class pulls Abhijit, our head of data platforms. So there's something true to that one. The buying then becomes very precise, and you really kind of have to develop tools to understand what the machines are doing. This one is a heat map over the quality of impression on the x-axis. It's about 5 orders of magnitude, so on the left-hand side, those are the least likely to convert, and on the right side, those are the most likely. So it's about 10,000 times more likely on the right to convert. And the y-axis is how much the system was paying for these things. And so kind of in that upper right section there, the system was spending about $100 CPM on the really good stuff. That's a crazy amount to spend, right, for online advertising. Normal rates are $1 or $2, that kind of thing. But the machine had such confidence that the data proved that it was working. So that was part of the overall optimal portfolio. So when you have this, then maybe you can kind of begin to see how we think, right? So instead of just prescribing channel spend, right, let's just evaluate it, and then you can look back on what happened yesterday and say, well, what was the mix yesterday? And just read that off as what the optimal spend was. As the world is sort of shifting, it's kind of weird. Everything's changing, right? It's all of a sudden there's this giant new website becomes a hit property. Everybody's there. We got to figure it out. People have mobile. Got to figure that out. Video becomes a bigger deal. Got to figure that out. The more this complexity comes, kind of the more fun it is for us because we're not needing as humans to figure these things out for ourselves. It's just a matter of with each of these channels trying to figure out how can we measure things at a user level between the delivery of the message and then the result. So I'm going to break through a few of these things. Not so much to brag about Rocket Fuel, but just as advice, I think there's a lot of people now talking about, we got this AI guy, we've got a PhD, we've got machine learning, we have neural networks, we've got a NASA guy. It becomes hard, right, to evaluate different solutions because everybody kind of has some message, right, about technical strength, big data. So I think for us, what really drove a lot of our growth, so Rocket Fuel started in 2008. We went public in 2013, and Deloitte recognized us as the fastest growing technology company in all of North America that year. So what really drove us was sort of just the rationality of media buying. In that year, we didn't actually have the marketing and personalization products that we have now, so it was all media buying. But media buying, it's a pretty rational discipline, right? There's always kind of interestingness going on, but essentially it's I've got my media budget, I've got my go-to partners, and then there's almost always a little bit in reserve to test the new kid. So I think the story of our growth was essentially being that new kid, getting tested and delivering good results for the brand and for the agency. Along with that, so there's then of course there got to be all this messiness just around programmatic itself, and what's viewable, what's not viewable, what's a human looking at, what's a bot fetching, and so forth. So we put a lot of energy into using our same PhDs who build the core tech for ad response to then build similar tech to predict viewability and to predict and classify traffic as even being human or bot. We actually released that one for free. If anybody wants to look on Rocket Fuel for Traffic Scanner, it's a very simple free tool to use on distinguishing human and bot traffic. And then, more and more of our customers said, this is great, but we want to understand it. So we built a lot of insights so you can look into how the campaigns are being served. And kind of segueing into just broader artificial intelligence, I was actually at IBM when Deep Blue, I guess, defeated Kasparov way back then. So it's a very interesting time for AI. You've probably seen this, a lot of articles being written now about AI generally, or how businesses can leverage AI. There's a number of books that speak about not just kind of near-term AI, but sort of longer-term implications. What does it mean to have not just laborers, but intellectual workers that, in certain cases, have just sort of super capabilities? There's some cool stuff happening in other industries. Just for food for thought. A Stanford entrepreneurship class that I mentor at, some kids during the course of the class created this robot. This is a mock of a later version, but they created this robot. They went out and talked to farmers, and organic farmers said, the problem is weeds. We're not allowed to spray dangerous pesticides. We have weeds. There's no solution other than hiring huge amounts of migrant laborers to come and then move on to some other field. So what could you do? During this class, the kids, well, not kids, they're MBA students as well. So the young adults and adults built this robot that would roll along the fields of a farm, use an AI vision system to detect the leaves of weeds versus the leaves of the crops you were trying to grow, and it would zap the weeds with a laser. So they've gone to some other uses of it, but it's pretty amazing. You may have seen, if you haven't seen, check out videos on Amazon's Kiva robotic system. In the old days, you can imagine people just working in this giant, multi-football field distribution center. They get a printout, get on a scooter, and go, get all the items you've ordered. These days, robots just bring the shelves to human packers. So I was going to finish on innovation, just given kind of the spirit of the conference here. So being called Rocket Fuel, we got curious about the early history of rockets and spaceflight. So in 1923, Goddard, who had come up with some key innovations around liquid-fueled rockets, said, I think we could get one to the moon. It was an amazing, audacious thing to say in 1923. We could barely drive cars and fly airplanes at that time. And the press sometimes likes to take you down a notch, when you're outspoken. So this is a Worcester Telegram of 1929. His rocket went up about half a mile, didn't get to the moon. But the dreamers often win in the end. So I think, for all of you in marketing, I'd say, in your own portfolios, take some steps that are thinking big. And for Rocket Fuel, we're often kind of trying to help behind the scenes. Occasionally, we have a telegenic moment, but the main thing for us is really being a technology partner to marketers and agencies and trying to help them just achieve superior results and enjoy the work that they do. So thank you all very much.